Today we are welcoming David Overoy from SSAI, who is one of our website specialists. And he's going to start talking about globe visualizations in a few minutes. I just wanted to take a few minutes more of your time and introduce you to why we're doing these and the funding source for these. So these are in support of the 2020 Globe Student Research Symposia in the United States. And my name is Jennifer Bourgeau. I'm the United States Country Coordinator, and I coordinate these across the country. There's 6 events in each of the regions.
Oh, happy to. I drive right by the house.
So if you look here on the map, there are the 6 areas that you'll see: the Midwest, the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, the Northwest, the Pacific, the Southeast, and the Southwest. And at these student research symposia, students share their research through poster presentations, and they share those with each other. And then they also share them with STEM professionals. They're 5th through 12th grade students, and all of the projects involve GLOBE protocols and/or GLOBE data. So it's really important to have these kinds of webinars to support the students in how to download the data and then to visualize it. There is funding support available for students within the United States to attend. The funding application period closed on February 1st. There's a small registration fee to attend of $200, but a lot of our travel support and the SRS events themselves are mainly funded by a grant from NASA and also YLACIS, which is Youth Learning as Citizen Environmental Scientists. These are our locations. They start at the end of April, April 23rd and 24th. The first one will be at the University of Alaska in Fairbanks. And then the last one is in the Southwest in Austin, Texas, May 15th through the 17th. So they're pretty close together, all in the spring. And as I said, this is one of the resources that we offer for students and teachers in support of the Student Research Symposia, but these are also helpful for students that may be doing projects for the IVSS, and that deadline is coming up soon in about 2 weeks. So make sure you pay attention to this visualizations webinar, and there may be some great tips that you can use with students, or if there's students on the line, for you to incorporate into your posters and presentations. So this is our second webinar. We do have one on the ADAT tool, which is how to access the data. There's also a couple other webinars online about how to get the data from the website as well. So we do have a page of the GLOBE website that's devoted to analyzing your data, and it does include links to these other tutorials. So today we're doing the visualizations one. And again, David Overoy from SSAI, if you are joining us a little bit late, is going to present on that. So with that, I will let him take over if he's ready, hopefully. And I'm going to stop sharing so he can introduce himself and begin the real work.
Great, thank you, Jen. So yeah, turn on my camera so you can all see me and poke fun, and we'll go along with the demonstration. My name is Dave Overoy. I've been involved with GLOBE for a fair while now, and have been pretty intimately involved with the visualization system, the data retrieval system, and so on. So if you have any questions as I go through, I don't know if we're using the chat box, Jen, or people can just feel free to ask them as we go along. So I think it's a small enough group, so feel free to stop me at any time and ask away. And as we all know, there's nothing like a live demo to find all the bugs in the system, so I'm looking forward to that as well. What I have up, can you see my screen okay? There should be a browser and a PowerPoint. Yeah, okay. So here we are on the main globe.gov site, and Jen had mentioned that there are various tutorials available. So besides recording this, if you want to go back and take a look at this presentation, I'll be using this presentation here to kind of walk us through or at least reference it. But it's also available if you go up under Get Trained and using the Globe website, you'll see there's data tutorials here. And this has grown over time, so now there's lots of different tutorials. The one that I'm going to be doing is the Retrieve and Visualize Your Data. So this has the PowerPoint presentation, and it also has a walkthrough. So if all else fails and you don't remember anything and you can't get back to the Zoom session or whatever it might be, you can always go to the Get Trained using the Globe website, and you'll find this and other tutorials there to help you out. So with that, let's go ahead and get into the Viz system, as we call it. I'm logged in right now with an account, and you can see that it says Dave Teacher Overroy. So this is an account that should look like what teachers will have, and I'm assuming many of you are teachers. So you should see the same kind of options that I have right here. And I thought what might be good is first just to say, what if all I want to do is just get to my school's data? And I don't necessarily want to get a PhD in the Viz system to learn every nuance and every capability. I just want to find my school's data. What's the quickest and fastest and easiest way for me to do that? So I'm going to start with that, and then we'll kind of go into some of the more capabilities and features of the Viz system. So everybody, once you've logged in, should see something like what I have here. And there are options like enter data and visualize data. And of course, you might guess that would take you to the Viz system. But if all I really want to see is just my school's data, I can go down here to my school. And this is the school that I use called Canyon Weather. And you should see your school here as well. And when I click on the school page, every school has a home page, and they all look something more or less like this. It includes the teacher's names, and if they have student accounts, you'll see those listed here. And if you scroll down, you'll see here's all the sites associated with my school. And there's an option that says include citizen science sites or not. I'm going to turn it off. Citizen science sites are measurements that you take with the Globe Observer app. So if you did a cloud observation, mosquitoes, trees, land cover, it probably automatically created a site for you, and that's what, when I click this back on, that's what all of these are. These are the automatically created sites that come out of Globe Observer. You can see in my case, I've got a lot that are atmosphere, so these are probably all cloud observations that I did. And sometimes I just did one observation, wherever that happened to be. Sometimes I did multiple observations. It kind of depends on what I was doing. But I want to go to my weather station, and I have a data station, and you can see it's listed right here. So the quickest way to get to my data for my school is to go to your school page, find the site that you're interested in, and if you just click on that, it automatically opens our visualization system. And it doesn't show you anything else except your school's data. So by clicking on that link, it went straight to my school, and you can see in the map in the background, it's down in Southern California, that's where I am. And it automatically brings up the data that was associated with that particular site, and it automatically defaults to the last 30 days worth of data that it shows in this plot here. If I want, I can change it to 1 year, and so that way I can see kind of the trend over a year's period of time. So that is the quickest way to get to your data on a site that you may be maintaining. Again, a little different with the citizen science sites. It all works the same, but sometimes on the citizen science sites, you don't see the full depth of data. It might be just the one measurement at that one location. So while I have this open, I think it's good to just kind of look at what else is in this little pop-up window. Like I said, it references back to the site where these measurements were taken. You see the XY chart, there's the degrees and time. You could change this to be whatever time frame you want. So I happen to have a year's worth of data here, but I can do a custom one if I want to. If I want to make this chart big, I can click on the little plus sign and it'll pull it up. And now I can see it in a nice large format, and I can print this out. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll print it as a PDF file as opposed to printing it to the printer. And that way I've got a hard copy that I can use, give out to people, whatever it might be. There's also a link button here that if I want to share this, so let's just say I want all my students to be able to get this, I can click on that share button. It gives me this URL, which I can copy. And if I open up a new browser window and just paste that in, it's a very long URL. You don't have to worry about that. But this gives you a direct link to that chart. So if, again, you want to share this with any number of people, any chart you have, you can just click the share button, which is this little chain icon that you see right here. So that's how I can get the larger version of this. If I want to get this data that you see right here in a CSV or a spreadsheet type format, I can click on this, view plot data in the table. And so this is kind of an Excel version of the data. And you'll see down here at the very bottom, it says export CSV. So any data that you bring up in this particular data frame, you can export it as a CSV file, open it up as Excel, and do whatever plotting or statistics or whatever it is you might want to do on it. If there was other protocols that were done at this site, I can check here and I can select those. So you see I've got air temperature here, but if I wanted barometric pressures, I could click that and it would show me the barometric pressure over 1 year, which is not a very exciting plot when you're zoomed out like that. And likewise, I've done some clouds data and relative humidity and so on. Precipitation, since this is LA, is probably, a little bit of rain here and there, but pretty dry. And again, any of this data I can export to a CSV file. I can make it a big plot. I can actually share this pop-up window as well. So you see up here with this little link, I can click on that. Again, I get the URL. I can go back into the browser, paste that URL in, and it'll bring just that pop-up window. So if I, again, want to share this with somebody else, you can go back and share this. The other tabs that you see here, data counts, that shows how much data has been recorded per period of time. This is information about my school, so the name, the location, all the sites that are associated with the school, additional information. If I took any measurements here that involve photos, I'd see them here. So whether it's sky conditions, so this would show the cloud measurements that I've made over time, and I can go through and see all those photos of clouds. And there's also the site photos. So if I did take pictures of my backyard in this case, you'd be able to see the site photos. Other useful things in this pop-up window, there's a link back to the school, which is right here. So if I click on that, it'll link back to the school. We'll talk about why that can be helpful in a little bit. So that's kind of the basics of how to kind of operate in this pop-up window, what type of information is there, what kind of things you can get out of it. I'll talk about this little plus sign in just a bit. We'll talk about what that's for, basically to overlay more than one set of data. But let me pause for just a moment and see if that makes sense. Again, at this point, we're not talking about this little hidden thing over here, which is really, if you go to the Viz system directly, this is how you interact with Viz. This example is go to your school page and get your school data out as fast and quickly as possible. And that's what this is kind of introducing. So let me just pause for a minute and see if anybody has any questions about that. And if not, we'll go into kind of how to go directly into the Viz system. So, anything out there? Sounds like not. All right, let me keep going. And again, any questions along the way, feel free to ask. So I'm going to close this window out. And I'm actually just going to go back to Viz right from the very beginning. So if you don't go to Viz through the school, you can get there through this link, viz.globe.gov. And as I mentioned, when you're logged in, one of the first things you see up here at top is visualize data. That will also take you to the Viz system. So biz.globe.gov, go to visualize data. Either one of those will get you to the Viz system. Once you're in the Viz system, it starts with a nice blank map and a little welcome here, which reminds you there are 3 steps to get the Viz system to work. The first, which it says right here, is what protocol data do you want to visualize? The second is what's the date that you want to use to visualize the data? And then the third one is, well, click on the data point to actually retrieve and see the data. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And I'll start with what data do I want to see? So I'll go ahead and do air temperature data again because there's a lot of that there. So when I click on this, everything in Globe is organized by spheres. And so if you want to look at atmosphere data, you can click on atmosphere. And this shows all the different options for the protocol data related to atmospheres. And I said I want to do air temperature. So I'm just going to do daily average temperature. And when I click it, you see the submit button shows up. And I'll go ahead and click submit. So it's gone off and it's pulled back the air temperature data for this date, which is today. And you can see all the data that Globe folks have put into the system for today. So that's just the one day. There's a legend down here which shows kind of what the different colors mean and how the gradation works. Should be a pretty standard legend. And as I mentioned on that tutorial, step 1, what data do you want to see? Step 2, what date? So it defaults to today's date, but I can go back and choose March 3rd, for example. So this is the data for March 3rd. And then the third step is to actually see the data. Now I can see it on the map here. I can actually add contours. So that puts a nice little coloration behind it. And I can turn off the dots if I want, so I can just see the colors. And there's a contour opacity that I can adjust. So this kind of view does give you the idea that it's pretty cold up there in northern United States and up in Canada, and it's getting pretty warm down in some of these areas here. Not a big surprise, but it's nice to see that contour capability. I'm going to turn the contours off and go back to air temperature. Now, if I want to actually see the data for one of these locations, a lot of times I'll use one of these places. Oh, what do you know? They're not actually doing data. I'll pick one randomly and we'll see. Here's this one. Ah, I picked mine. I really didn't know this was going to be my data station, but there it was right on top. So this again is just like you saw, the pop-up window that allows you to go through the various data. Let me go click somebody else's point. Let's go do this one down here. Okay, so this is the Notre Dame school, and you see the air temperature there is pretty boring relative to LA. I think as you get down to the equator, there's not a lot of variability, but you can see here's all the other data that they've measured as well. So anybody in Globe, anywhere in Globe, you can click on any data point and you can find out information about what their data is. Again, if I click on this one, I did mention one thing that's nice is you can go find the school. So if you are interested in collaboration, let's just say that you're doing surface temperature. And I see that these folks are doing surface temperature as well, although they haven't done it in the last 30 days or last year. We'll talk about that in a second too, how to get around that. But if this is somebody I wanted to collaborate with, I can click on this little link and it will open up their school page. And I can learn more about this particular school. I can see it's in the Dominican Republic. I can see the various teachers that are involved there. And I can click on any of these teachers' names. And if I want to, I can friend them. So I can add them as a friend. And that way I'll have access to their email. And then I can send them a note and say, hey, I'm doing surface temperature too. I see you're doing surface temperature. Maybe we could do some kind of a collaboration. So it's not really part of the visualization system, but I think it's kind of nice to know that anybody, any school that's doing a similar protocol to you, you can find out the school, you can find the teacher, and you could try to make contact with them to see if it's something you might want to collaborate with. All right, so that's kind of the basics of how to put data up on the map and, you know, click on the different data points. If I wanted to, I could put another protocol on the map. So right now I have air temperature. Maybe I want to put precipitation up there too. So I'll put rain depth and submit. And now I have all the rain temperature data along with all of the air temperature data. And this is where I might want to use contours as an example. So I'll turn off the dots for air temperature and I'll put contours on. And then I can see the rain depth. And I might be able to make a connection between, oh, look at that, it's generally cooler in this area. There's a lot of precipitation, or whatever type of correlation I might want to look at on the map. All right, let me, if I'm done with a particular layer and I no longer want to have it on the visualization system, I can click these little 3 dots and delete the layer. And that'll bring me back to where I was. So I'll go back to the air temperature again. Now, if I wanted to grab all of this data from this one day, you might have seen there's also a view layer table. So if I click on that, that will download all of the data on this map for this particular day. So all these should be from March 4th. And these are all the different measurements that were made that supported what you see on the map. So one way to get data from Viz is to click on the data point. And when you do that, you can download the data for that particular school by using this. The other way is to go back up here and click on the layer and view the layer table, and that will download all of the data that you see on the map. So 2 different ways of going about getting the data. I saw a chat pop up, I think. Was there any question that came out through that? Let me see.
We just had a general question about what equipment is needed for students to participate. So,
okay.
Do you want me to take it, Dave?
Sure, if you like.
While you're getting ready, right?
Yeah.
Jack, you just need whatever equipment, well, the equipment that you need depends on the protocol that you're doing. And we have a whole toolkit that kind of identifies what equipment for specific protocols. So I'll put those links in the chat box. And I'll also put links to the teacher's guide where you can look through and see what equipment and what protocols we have.
All right, so I mentioned that I'd show you what that little plus symbol was on the pop-up chart. So let me show you that now. If you want to plot more than one chunk of data on a chart, so let's say you want to do air temperature versus relative humidity, or maybe you want to plot the temperature in my school versus the temperature in another school. How could I do that? So let me go back to this, and I'll click on this one, which I think was mine, yeah. And I'm going to click this little plus sign. Now, when I do that, you'll see something happens on the left side. It opens up this little box right here, which is multi-site plots. What that means is I'm going to plot more than one set of data. And the first set of data that I'm going to plot is the one that's clicked on here, this air temperature from Canyon Weather. So you see it says Canyon Weather, air temperature, and there's a temperature range and a date range that you can put in here. So that's one of the plots that I want to do. Now, I'd like to compare my data with a place way up here where it's nice and cold. So I'm going to pick one up here. And here's the Muhu Comprehensive School. I'm going to click plus on theirs. And when I do that, you see over here on the left side, now there's 2 schools, and they both are daily average temperature. And just for the heck of it, I'm going to do one more, and I'll go further south. Maybe I'll pick one of these ones down in, looks like maybe Saudi Arabia there. And I'll click the plus sign here and close that. So now I've got 3 different schools. They're all plotting air temperature, but it didn't have to be air temperature. I could do one with air temperature and another one with relative humidity and another one with barometric pressure, whatever combination of things I might want. So this is the 3 schools that I want to plot. I'm going to plot a year's worth of data. So instead of this plot range, I'm going to change this to 2019. So there's 2019 to 2020. And I'll do the auto y-axis. We'll take a look at that and see what happens and show you why you might want to change that. And so now I'm going to plot the data. So this pulls back a year's worth of data for each of the 3 different sites. You can see the Canyon weather site. Here is that one, so I can turn it on and off. And there's the one that was further north. And then here's the one that's the one in Saudi Arabia. So again, I can make any combination of charts. You see, one thing that's a little misleading is we've got the different temperature ranges, 0 to 40 on this one, and this one goes -5 to 20. So because I said you figure out the plot, the chart size, it shows different values to kind of maximize the screen real estate here. And so that is kind of misleading because this one school here, this Woohoo one, it's not the same temperature as Los Angeles. But when you look at this plot, you might think it is if you didn't realize that it's a different scale on the right side. So rather than use this scale, and that's kind of a learning moment for students too, if they look at that and say, hey, it's the same temperature in Los Angeles as it is in Finland. Well, no, it's not really. Check the scale. So go back over here and you can change the scale, and I'll just use all of them. The default is -50 to 50, and we'll try plotting again. And now we see a better representation of what the data is because they're all on the same scale. And now you can see that that Woohoo school is definitely colder than the Los Angeles school, which is definitely colder than the school in Saudi Arabia. Again, you can share this, you can print it. And there's the option down here to view the plot data, so you can export the plot data. All right, any questions at this point? I'll shift gears to talk about some other things that the Viz system can do, unless there's some questions. I'll give it a minute. Take off my jacket because I'm in LA and it's 80 degrees out. All right, I'm going to refresh this so we can start over. So I'm just going to click the refresh button. There we go. So again, it always starts with this welcome. A couple of other options that are on here. There's filter options. And so if you want, you can find sites by specific values. So if I want to find a particular site, I can put in a teacher name or a school name. So again, if I use mine as an example, I'll type in Canyon weather. And as I type, it's searching, and eventually it finds Canyon weather. It says, okay, here's all the sites associated with Canyon weather. Which one do you want? I can use my Davis station, and it'll filter to go straight to the Canyon weather site. So that's one way to do a filter. Get rid of that. You can also do multiple sites. So if you want to search by multiple schools, by place, by latitude and longitude. So I could say, I just want to see all the places in Poland. And it'll automatically put a little circle around Poland, zoom right in, and show me if there's any data in Poland. That also works for places. So you could say a lake, for example, and find things around the lake. You can use a lat long range, or you can actually draw on the map tool. So you can use a tool and draw a box and find everything within that box. Elevation range is there as well. We already went through that. So let me show you a couple of the other things that you can plot that I think are kind of neat in Viz. Let me zoom back out again. So I bet most people have done clouds observations. You can actually go down here and you can plot cloud photos. How does that look? So these are the photos that we're taking on March 4th. So these are photos taken today. Let me go back a day just for the heck of it. So here are all the photos of clouds that were taken yesterday. We default to the up direction, I think. So these are all up, and if there's no up, then we default to north. But it's kind of neat to see what it looks like. And if I zoom in on an area, let's just say I zoom in over the US. So here's all the photos that were taken in the up direction. And you can see over here where I think Jen is, somewhere up in this area. It looks a little cloudy out there. See, in beautiful sunny Southern California, we got a nice little bit of sun. But there is an ability to put NASA satellite data on top of or underneath the data that you're recording. So in this case, what I'd like to do is put on the Terra True Color map. And the system pulls the data from NASA satellites to show what the data looked like when Terra flew over the particular location. And so now you've got an overlay of the NASA satellite data with the photos that people were taking. And it's kind of interesting to see. Hopefully they line up pretty well, the cloudy areas and the sunny areas. So it's kind of nice for students to be able to do a comparison of what they measured with what the satellite saw. Now, one thing to keep in mind is the satellite goes over twice a day, and weather conditions do change. And so it's possible that you recorded a nice sunny shot in the morning, and maybe this is the afternoon data when Terra came over, and so maybe it's off by a few hours. So it's not always going to be, it's not the exact instant that you took the photo, but it's still kind of neat to see that kind of overlay. There are some other ones that are here as well. Another one that's kind of interesting is the soil moisture. If anybody is doing the SMAP protocol, soil moisture, we do have their data here as well, and you can overlay the SMAP data. The legend is the same, so it should match. So if you found that it was a yellow, however much precipitation that was, or how much moisture that was in the water, your data should line up with the NASA satellite data as well. So that's kind of a cool feature for those that are doing the soil moisture. Another kind of interesting feature, if I turn off the base map, actually, let me just reset this because I got all these different options going on. Is when you do your measurements or somebody in your organization does measurements, we keep track of all the sites that you create. And so if it's something you do with Globe Observer or something you do with some of the standard Globe protocols, when you're logged in, you can say show my site or show my organization site. So if I click show my sites, this will show all the places that I have data that's been recorded for this particular user. So in this case, you can see this particular user is made these measurements right here. And if you expand it, sorry, let me get back to that. That's right here, to show my organization, then anybody in my organization who's done measurements, their sites show up there as well. So it's just a way to kind of see, if you've got a pretty active organization. I know in some schools, they'll get their parents doing Globe Observer measurements along with the kids. All of that data will show up. So it's a quick way to see all the measurements associated with either yourself or your organization. Since a lot of people have been doing mosquitoes, let me just bring up the mosquitoes. And I'll talk about this thing called data counts. So if I go to Hydrosphere and I look at the mosquito habitat mapper data, and I want to see all the mosquito habitats, and I click submit. Let me turn off my my sites so we're not confused. There we go. So you can see for today, there's not been a lot of mosquito habitat measurements. And I think if people are doing research on mosquito habitats, and often in a lot of the other protocols, they want to know, well, where's all the data? I could click on this point and maybe they've done this every day for a year, or maybe they've only done it once. And I really want to find the places where there's a lot of data. How do I do that? That's where this data counts option comes into play. So if I click data counts instead of measurements, you see it comes up with a range, which happens to be the entire range that we've had the mosquito habitat mapper data available. And now you can see all the places that have entered data at any time during this range. And the size of the circle will tell you how much data this particular location is measured. So this one down here in Australia is probably only done one measurement. But if I look at some of these other places, yeah, off the west coast of Africa, for example, if I zoom in over this area, I start to see these larger circles, and that lets me know that these are locations that they actually did, you know, a fair amount of data entry. I can also see that the data is clustered, so if I wanted to do some research in this area, there's a lot of mosquito habitat data that I could take a look at. So again, the data counts gives you the total number of measurements that were made. It doesn't tell you what the measurements are. It just says, hey, this is where the data was measured. And I can click on any of these to pull up information. This is for Senegal, and I can see they did a measurement at this particular location. There's a lot of sites in this area, so I can go through all the different sites where they've measured data. And presumably, I'll find the one where they did more than a couple somewhere along the way. Here we go. So they did 8 measurements on this particular location, and so on. I can go through all the different sites. So that's where you use the data counts, is just to find the places where people are most active. You can go back here and do a lat long box around this and say, get me all the data that's in this lat long area. So different ways to be able to pull that data back out. All right, so I'm going to go back, barring any questions, to my PowerPoint presentation real quick, because this is kind of my, my guide to make sure I covered everything. And I'll go through it real quick. I think we've covered just about everything that I meant to go through, but this will kind of give us a reminder, and then if you have any questions, we can go through it. So we talked about how to get to the Viz system. You can do the go-to. We talked about the 3 steps. Step 1, which protocol? Step 2, oh, here you go, which protocol? Step 2, what is the date? And step 3, click on a point so you can get see your data. We talked about this little pop-up window and how you can get the plot data into a CSV file, how you can change the timeline on the axis, that whole concept of the multi-site plot when you click the little plus sign. I didn't mention this, but you can pull all the atmosphere data out for a particular location by clicking on that. And then if you click on the school's name, that will take you to the school's page so you can learn more about the school, or perhaps introduce yourself to the teacher at that particular school. And then under the advanced features, we talked about the filters, which were location, elevation, site, school. Maybe I'll do animation in a second if we have some time. And then we talked about using the plus icon to add multiple data sets to the graph. These are some screenshots that show the different filter options that we went through. I didn't mention this, but I did say you could view the table, the data on the map in a table, like a CSV file. You can also download it as a KMZ file. So if you have the map with all the dots on it, you can download it as a KMZ, which can be opened up in various GIS programs. So if you're into those kind of representations of data, you can use that to download the KMZ. We went through the multi-site plot. So you click the plus, it shows up on the left side. You can change the axes, you can change the plot range, and then you'll be able to see the overlay of the data. And we talked about the show my sites or show my organization sites and measurements. If you just want to see your things or just your school sites, you can filter and see all of them. And then I'll see if I do the animation in just a second. And then lastly, we talked about data counts. So why do you use data counts? You use data counts to find the places where people are doing a lot of measurements, so you know where to find locations that have the most data. And we talked about clicking up here to find the data counts icon. And then I had a little quiz. When I do this in person, I'll have people do. So I think we covered everything that I meant to cover. I didn't actually do the animation, so I don't do that very often. So it's going to put me on the spot here. Actually, I don't even see the icon. Oh yeah, go back to measurements. There we go. So I'll go ahead and do the animation. Let me zoom out a ways. There we go. And I'm going to turn off the mosquito habitats. delete that layer. And I'll do the temperature instead because that kind of makes for a nicer animation. So I've got the air temperature up, and I'll zoom in a little bit more. Maybe we'll do it over the US. So I want to do an animation. I can click on this little film camera up here, and it defaults to a 1 month range. Sorry, my zoom thing's over it. There we are. The previous month is what it defaults to, but I can adjust the time range. I can say, do this for each day. I can do 1 day per month, 1 day, it just kind of depends on what I want to animate. And then I can press the play button, and it'll go through and animate the change over time. So if you did this over a year, you could obviously see the change from 1 month to the next. You can also record this and export it as a movie file. So if you want to use this as a movie file to demonstrate the change over time for any of the GLOBE protocols, you can do that.
You can do that with contours too?
No, unfortunately, Contours does not animate, I don't believe, but let me see if it makes a liar out of me. I'm pretty sure it doesn't. Yeah, I don't know if you saw that little thing popped up that says, doesn't work with Contours. I know, it'd be cool if it did. All right, so that is a whole heck of a lot on the Viz system. Hopefully, it becomes clear that if you really don't want to become the PhD expert, like I said earlier, when you're at your school page, just find the site that you're interested and click on the site, and it'll just automatically open it up and put it up there. And now you've got your plot with your stuff and your data, and that's pretty quick and easy to get to. But if you do want to start looking at other people's data, look at what's happening across the world, again, looking at the photos, comparing data to the NASA satellite data, all of that kind of stuff involves going into this menuing system and actually choosing the specific protocols you want, and you know, using the filtering, if you like, to get to the information you're interested in. I think I've got the trees here. Let's see, tree heights, tree photos. That's kind of neat to see. In the case of tree photos, we default to showing all the photos in the last year. If you want, you can see all the photos in the last month, or just all the photos from the last day, just depending on how you want to set up that particular filter. All right, everybody's been really quiet, and it's 45 minutes to listen to me blab on. So hopefully somebody has a question or two, or if there's anything in the chat window, let me know.
So there are questions. I just want to make sure of one thing, Dave. That PowerPoint that you're using, that's in with the tutorials. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll double check to make sure the latest version is there. It should be. I'm pretty sure I've got the latest version. But it's here under data tutorials using the GLOBE website. And they actually recently kind of moved things around. And I guess they didn't like my video, so they put it way down there at the very bottom. But there's a video of me actually going through and doing many of the things that you just saw. And then the presentation is there as well if you just want to download the presentation. So it's the last one in the list. This presentation does include other things. I think if you look at the beginning, yeah, we have ADAT, we have the GLOBE API, and we have Viz. So there's multiple things in this presentation, and I think everybody's getting little pieces of these as we go along, but the whole package is up there for you to download.
Great. There's a couple more questions. Can you visualize measurements you've taken with the GLOBE Observer app?
Yes. Any measurement that you take for GLOBE, whether it comes in from the GLOBE Observer app or whether it comes in from the traditional GLOBE data entry, any of that will show up on the Viz system. And I'll go back and show you two ways to look at that. Again, if you're on your school page, there's this option which is checked by default, which says include citizen science sites. Citizen science sites are sites that are created from Globe Observer. So if you've done any cloud measurement, let's just say as an example, you'll see this weird code here, which is one that we automatically created when you did your cloud measurement. So any cloud measurement you do, any trees, all that stuff, all that is available, and you can get to it from your school site. If you used a school account, you can go to the Viz system, and just like I was showing you with the trees, for example, all these tree photos, these were all taken with the Globe Observer application. Likewise, when we were looking at the mosquito habitat, that was all taken with Globe Observer, and of course, clouds data, you know, and so on. So everything you do with Globe Observer shows up here, and if you log in to Globe Observer using the same account that you use for your school and for regular Globe work, then it'll all be associated with your school, and you'll be able to see it there.
Okay, we have another question. Oh, sorry, I didn't mute my typing. My plot only shows dots without the lines like yours. How do I connect my dots with lines?
Oh, okay. Let's take a look at that. I believe what you're talking about, if I'm guessing right, actually, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do this. Stop bugging me. If I pick a place down here, let's just pick one down in Brazil. Oh, that's not a good example. How about that one? There we go. So you might see something that looks like this. And what we do is we connect the dots when they are in a sequence of days. So if you do one day followed by the next day followed by the next day, then we'll connect the dots. So you see this one 2.5, this one 2.6, this one 2.7. They skipped a day, and the next measurement was 2.10. So we don't connect that. We don't necessarily know what data should go there. So when you see a plot that looks like this with individual points, that usually means that there are days that are skipped in between the measurements.
Does that answer your question? That was from Ren Garcia. I just want to make sure we had that question answered.
Yes, that answers my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great.
Let's see, we also, from Matthew Pierce, the excellent training on the Viz system. Did you create a recording of this? So yes, this will be recorded, and there's also other versions of the visualization tutorial, like Dave said, on that other page where the PowerPoint is, but I'm putting in the link where we have a YouTube playlist of all the Student Research Symposia videos and webinars that we've made having to do with supporting students in analyzing data. And it would also be good for teachers too. So I put the link to that channel on there. So either place would work.
All right, I will stop sharing.
Are there any other questions?
And everybody's challenge is to find the Canyon Weather School and find my account and click the friend button so you can have my contact information. That way, if you have any questions, you can bug me. All right.
Else, we want to make sure there's enough time. Wait, Dave, wait time. You have to count to 7. I'm the one who's on the East Coast and I'm ready to go home. Not you. You're on the West Coast.
The day is young, and I am not.
All
That
right.
was a great webinar. Thank you so much. Nice job.
Great, thank you. Good luck with everything.
All right, I have one more question to answer. I will email you directly, Larissa, with that link. It was the link to Globe apps. Actually, Dave, do you have it in front of you or no?
What's that? The link to what?
I mean, you're the web guy, right? So the link where there's information on our apps.
How to get to Globe Observer?
Just all the apps, because we have a couple of them.
Let's see, I haven't actually been here for a little while, but there's, you can go to the Observer website, observer.globe.gov, and click Get the App. That's one way. And then if you go on the main Globe site, there is a Globe data. And then it finishes loading. There we are. Data entry, and then this will have information about the data entry mobile app in addition to Globe Observer. So kind of two different ways to get to it. The Globe data entry app is one that allows you to do data entry for all of Globe's protocols. Globe Observer has a subset of protocols that we could take a little more time and make it a little more fancy and interactive. This one tends to be just basic forms that you enter data in. So you kind of have two different ways to enter data.
And I put the 2 links there to both of those with the Globe Observer and the data entry app link.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you to everyone that attended in person, and hopefully we'll have a lot of views virtually afterwards. Again, this will be posted to our YouTube channel or our playlist for the US Research Symposia. And if you click on that link, you'll see that there's a whole bunch of other great webinars that we'll be posting to that site as well about teachers using the data and all the different steps of the science practices that students should be using in order to carry out their research. And go Globe.